real pleasure to have you both on the programme, and particularly for you, Jamie, because it must be hard for you to watch Catherine's report there, because you saw what happened to your father, you've lived through it, and how difficult was it for you and your mum?
Well, yeah, watching that report is heartbreaking, because it's exactly the same thing that we went through. You start grieving for the loss of the person who has dementia long before they actually die, which is a terrible thing to experience.
There's your father there. I know he did an awful lot, actually, didn't he, for the Alzheimer Society? Very brave of him to talk about his illness as he was suffering from it. He says that he kind of came to terms with it because, hey, you know, something's going to happen to all of us at the end. But you were very frank with him, weren't you, throughout the course of his treatment, to let him know what was happening?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was a very difficult process. Getting his diagnosis was a real tough time. But as soon as we had an answer, he started to ask me very straightforwardly, you know, what's going to happen to me? And is this terminal? And when someone says to you, is my disease terminal, that's quite a frightening thing to confront. And I was honest with him. I said, eventually, yes, it is. And from that moment onwards, I think he decided he would make the best of his time that he had left, which is why he got involved with the Alzheimer Society.
Very brave of him. And we've got a lovely picture, actually, of you and your dad. It must have only been taken a couple of years ago. And I know that towards the end, he didn't recognise you as his son anymore, which must have been heartbreaking for you, because he thought that you were his older brother, in some respects, I suppose, looking after him.
Yeah, I guess it was that. I mean, I look a little bit like him, I guess, and I was slightly taller than him, so I became big brother. But any time when he said, you know, who are you to me? What's the relationship? That's something you never expect a parent to ask you or to lose awareness of. So yeah, it was a really difficult thing to deal with. But the fact that he still felt that connection, you know, even though he was calling me big brother, you know, it was better than losing him entirely.
And your mum was one of his primary carers, and you've again spoken at length about how with Alzheimer's you can become abusive, can't you? Violent, even if you don't understand what you're doing. And it must have been a terrible toll on her as well, was it?
It's tough, because when someone has dementia, they get very confused. Normal day-to-day tasks become near impossible. And so the initial feeling is, I must challenge this, I must explain how things are to the person, I must, you know, correct them. But that led to so many difficulties and so many arguments. It was just a very difficult time to learn how to work with him.
Yeah, and it's fine that your dad is changing, which is just such a horrible thing, isn't it? And Mona, let's bring you in now, because we have this poll, the Channel 5 News poll, suggesting that people are now very fearful of dementia, and it's no surprise, is it, when listening to what happened to Jamie's father, Gerry, who's such a creative man, and all the other people that we've spoken to in our special series.
It is a concerning diagnosis. It is frightening to sort of come to terms with symptoms that sort of point towards memory decline, memory loss, that sort of thing. I think what we're trying to do is educate people better to sort of be aware of signs and symptoms, to try and get help earlier, because there are things that can help, that can sort of slow things down. There are medications, there are groups, there are multidisciplinary teams that actually can look after people. And obviously we've got things like the Alzheimer's Society, who are very supportive of families and patients who have been diagnosed, and it's important to get the diagnosis as early as possible to try and help where we can.
And all hope, I suppose, on finding a cure at some point, Jamie. Is that what you're really pushing for?
Yeah, I think prevention would be the best thing, but a cure is obviously the main goal right now.
And advice to people who are watching, who are worried, just briefly, what should they do?
The biggest mistake we made was to hold back and try and preserve Dad's pride. And in doing so, we delayed the diagnosis that we got. We delayed the point at which he started treatment. And I honestly think if we'd attacked things more directly and not tried to preserve his pride, he might still be with us now.